Hey everyone, this is Brian from ActiveMelody.com. In this week's guitar lesson, we're going to take a look at this Ragtime blues that I'm playing on an acoustic guitar, but you can do this on an acoustic or electric guitar. And this is a great structure because you've got two chords. In this, we've got a B7 chord and an E, and we just alternate back and forth between two chords. And it sounds great on its own because I'm defining the song by first starting with a chord. So you kind of set up the stage, and then if you'll notice, like the second time through, I was playing really just a lead without any sort of rhythm guitar, and it worked because your ear already knew where the song was going. So we're going to be switching scales as we switch chords, and I'm going to show you how to do all that. There's going to be a lot of theory in this, so you'll understand the whys behind everything. You're not just going to memorize the notes. I want to make sure you understand how to do this so that you can improvise and take this in your own direction. So I've got this video split into two parts. In this video, we're going to take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second video, as well as download the tablature for this, and have access to the on-screen tab viewer, you can get all of that at ActiveMelody.com. Just look for EP148. That's a lesson number for this lesson. So let's go ahead and get started with part one. Alright, so I switched guitars. I'm using this guitar because it has the fret markers. It makes it easier to follow along. The other guitar, the one that I used in the intro, is the Alvarez MPA70. It's a little parlor guitar, and it's my go-to guitar. I use it all the time. Great sounding little guitar. Okay, so this song is, let's talk through the structure of this. Now this song is in the key of E, and as I mentioned in the intro, there's two chords really. Now some of you are going to notice right off the bat that I'm playing more than two chords. From a literal standpoint, you'd be right. I am playing a few other chords. But from a structure standpoint, there's really only two. So in other words, if I were playing rhythm guitar for this, I would play a B7 chord, and then I'd go to an E chord. And I'd just go back and forth between those two chords. But this first chord that we're going to learn is a B13. And some of you will notice that, well, you know, hang on, you said B, it was like a B chord and an E chord, and now you're playing a B13, you're throwing in extra chords. Well, you can play different variations of a chord. So by playing a 13 chord, it gives it kind of a jazzy sound. If you wanted to just play a straight major B chord, you could do that. If you wanted to even jazz it up further, you could play a B major 7 chord and just kind of color it that way. It would give it a totally different feel, but by changing the chord, you can do that. You can alter the feel of the thing. So this first chord is going to be a B13 chord, and it's the 5 chord. Even though I said we're playing in the key of E, that some of you might get confused on that because you'll realize, hey, you said this is in the key of E, but you're starting on a B, and I thought the chord that you started with is the key that it's in. That's not true. This is the 5 chord in this case. And what do I mean by 5 chord? Well, a 5 chord, if we look at the major scale for the key of E, you'd have Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, right? All the way up. Well, each one of those is a number. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's your 5 chord. That's where the 5 comes from. So when you hear of a 1, 4, 5 blues progression, that's where that comes from. So we're starting on the 5 chord, and then we resolve to the 1 chord. And once it goes to the 1 chord, you can almost feel the tension release. It's sort of like that's where we need to be. This is going somewhere, and this is actually getting there. Alright, so let's get into the specifics of this song now. So it starts with a little walk up right to that B13 chord. Now I'm starting on the A, which is the 6th string on the 5th fret. I just use my index finger for that. Go A sharp, and up to the B. So easy first 3 notes there. And then I take my middle finger and I go down on the 8th fret 3rd string. My ring finger goes down on the 9th fret 5th string. And then my pinky goes down on the 9th fret 2nd string. And when you play that, that's a B13 chord. Really nice sounding chord. And I use that chord all the time. It's so easy to do. And the way that I think of getting to that chord is I just think of the major chord using the E chord shape. And I just take my pinky off and put it there. These two guys stay the same. So that's an easy way to get to a 13 chord. Okay, so That's the first thing we got. Now, right after I play that 13 chord, I come down and play this. Now, this is going to throw some of you because this chord is an A6 chord. Let me show you how to play the chord, then I'll explain why an A6 chord is working when I said there was only 2 chords. So here's an easy way to transition to that A6 chord. We're going to take our index finger off the bar there, and I take my ring finger off as well. So now my pinky and my middle finger are left, and we're going to slide them down 2 frets. So we're going to keep those there. Now my ring finger goes down on the 7th fret, 4th string, and then my index finger goes down on the 5th fret, 1st string. And that's an A6 chord. And just if you ever want to use these chords again, just look at where they are in reference to the major chord that you know. So if that's an A major chord, see where the bar is? Well, that's where your index finger would go. That's how you can get to an A6 chord. And the A6 chord is a slidable chord. It's very you commonly hear that used. A good example of that would be the song Memphis, Tennessee. Where it goes. In fact, that's where I got this little riff at the beginning of this. It came from Memphis, Tennessee, that song. So, alright, so we did the walk up, we did the B13 chord, we did the A6 chord, and then I'm going to explain why this chord works in just a second. But then we're going to take this chord, and we're going to slide it up 2 frets, keeping everything exactly where they are, so that your ring finger and your pinky are now on the 9th fret, and that's a B6 chord, and then back down. So it goes, so it's a downstroke with an up, where I'm just hitting kind of that 1 string or the 1 and 2 string if you accidentally hit the 2, and then back down to the A6. So let me put that together. We have just practice that over and over again until you got it. Okay, now why the A6 chord? Why does that work? Hey Brian, you said there was only 2 chords. Well, structurally there are 2 chords, but the reason this A6 chord works, it goes back to the major scale, and that's why I mentioned do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. The A, if we look at it, we have E, F sharp, G sharp, A. See how the A is in there? Well, you can play chords as leads as well. Hopefully this is a big aha moment for a lot of you. A lot of people think that when you're playing a lead or a solo that it has to be a single string or maybe a double stop. But it can be a full chord, and so that's what I'm doing. That's just using that as a lead instead of just going. I'm playing a full chord. So you've got your B chord, your A chord. If I wanted to keep going with it, you could have your G sharp chord, your G sharp minor chord, F sharp minor chord, and an E. So you got all these chords to work with. And that's what's going on there. So even though it's a chord, it's really, I think of it as more of a lead, if that makes any sense, because structurally we're still going back and forth between the B and the E. Okay, now then I come down to an E. Actually, it's an E6. And the way that I do this from a strum or a rhythm perspective is I start by playing the low 6th string or the open E string, and then I do a downstroke. Here's how I make the E6, by the way. I'm just make an E chord, and then you put your pinky here on the 2nd fret, 2nd string. It's a really nice little jazzy sounding E chord. Easy to play too. So I go downstroke, downstroke, another downstroke on the open E string again, and then we do an upstroke. So we go down, 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 up. Let me do that. So you got down, 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 up, down, 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 up. So just count that out if you need to get the rhythm of that. Now, right after that, I played a little lead part that goes. Actually, I ended there. And then I came back up here. So let me explain this lead part. Very easy to play. I start with my ring finger here on the 2nd fret, 5th string, and I slide from the 2nd fret up to the 4th fret. And then my index finger goes down on the 2nd fret, 4th string. Then we got the 4th fret, 4th string. Sorry, I had to think about that. And then I do this little slide that goes between the 4th fret and the 5th fret, and then back to the 4th fret, like that. Now some of you may want to do a little hammer-on thing with your pinky if that's more comfortable for you, but that seems easiest for me anyway, is to just slide back and forth real quick. And then we come back down to the 2nd fret, and then that last note is on the 4th fret, 5th string. So putting it all together, we have from the E. And then we come down back to the B part. Now before I move on to that, let me explain this little lead part and explain where this is coming from and why this works and how you can expand on it or change it and make it something else if you want. So the what we're doing is we're playing in the E major pentatonic scale. Now, major pentatonic scale has the same 5 patterns that the minor pentatonic scale have. In fact, it looks exactly the same. The only difference between the major and the minor is that everything is shifted down this way 3 frets on the neck. So this little box here is the bottom of pattern 4 of the major pentatonic scale. So let me show you what you have to work with. You're going to think this is cool if you're, well, no matter where you're at, because there's a lot that you can do with it. So you have this little box here. This happens between the 2nd fret and the 4th fret. There's the 6th string, there's the 5th string, there's the 4th string. Any of those notes will work. So if you're ever playing an E, you have all these little options in those boxes that I showed you. Now there's an extension on that to go from the 4th fret to the 6th fret. We start here on the 4th string. So you have those two. And then above that you have another little box. That's on the 3rd string between frets 4 and 6. So now you have... Now I love that because if I'm ever playing anything in E, whether it be a blues or jazz or whatever, it's very easy to come up here and grab a little lick, a little fill. And that's all I'm doing with this. Now I slid into that, which took it technically, I guess, into the minor pentatonic scale just for a second, gave it a little bit of a bluesy feel. But you get the gist. You can play a lot of stuff just using that E major pentatonic position. Okay, from the beginning, let's back up. We have... Now notice how that flowed from that lead part. That I came and hit that 6th string on the 7th fret there to kind of conclude that lead part. That puts me right back in position to play that B13 chord again. Same thing. And then we come right back down to the E. And that time I just hit it once, just to define it. So now I can play the lead. Kind of a bluegrass thing, very slow though. I mean, that's the nice thing about this. So I'm not doing anything that's lightning fast. Most of the stuff that people show you or they're playing this style is so fast it's like hard to even grasp it. But we're playing in that same major pentatonic scale pattern that I just showed you. So we're going to slide from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret. And that's just going back and forth between the 2nd fret and the 4th fret on the 4th string. So we start on the 5th string. And then we walk up. From here, there's actually kind of a passing note here. So remember I showed you this extension? I just walked up to it chromatically, meaning, you know, using every note there. So that's the 4th string between fret 4, 5, and 6. And now we're going to go to the 3rd string, playing frets 4 and 6 again. And then that last note is on the 5th fret, 2nd string. Oh, one other little thing to point out. Notice that's a slide instead of me picking it. It's just easier. Sorry, right hand is out of view. Okay. Now, so we've basically, that's the entire intro part. Now what happens next is it goes right into a lead. Now I'm going to save a lot of this for the second video because I don't want to overwhelm you in this one. But I do want to get started on it and show you how to kind of start this thing. So here's what we're going to get to. We're going to go. We're going to get to that part. So that's a lot. There's a lot of notes to kind of cover there. And this is a lot of fun. It's got a real ragtime feel, and even though you're playing, most of what you're playing are just single strings, it is defined by what you're playing. I do play the chords in little bursts too to kind of help define it. But okay, so we come back to the B7 chord, or this time it's not a B13, it's a B7. So it's the same thing as the B13. Just take your pinky off. That's it. That's a B7. So after I play the B7, I come down here and go. Let's get that. Now, just as a reference to where we are, if this is your B chord and you're barring here on the 7th fret, that means that's your root fret. So if you were to play the minor pentatonic scale, it'd be right here, right? Pattern 1 would. So pattern 5 would be just behind it, which would be here. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to start here in pattern 5, which is kind of a different twist maybe for some of you. Most people, I even do this. I think of pattern 1. I think of wherever I'm at in the root chord. But this is just changing it up a little. So after we play that, we come down to the 5th fret, 1st string. And then the 7th fret, 2nd string. And then we're going to come down to the 5th fret on the 2nd string. So we got. Now my ring finger comes and reaches over here on the 8th fret, 3rd string to play that note. And then I go back up to the 5th fret, 2nd string. So, and I kind of let those ring out like this. It sounds horrible if you just hear it on its own like that. And I get this from Dave Rawlings, who's just one of my favorite all-time guitar players. He does a lot of that. Lets these notes kind of clash with each other intentionally. So now this note is interesting because if you look at where that is, minor pentatonic scale would be there, but we're playing here. Well, that's the major pentatonic scale. So major pentatonic scale, that's part of pattern 2. Pattern 2 would be, so it's the bottom of pattern 2. And if you don't know what I mean if all this is confusing to you, there's a video I've got which is called Mixing the Major and Minor Pentatonic Scale on Active Melody. So check that out. Just do a search in the lessons area. I don't remember the lesson number, but just do a search for mixing, the word mixing, and it should show up for you. So, okay, so after that, then I take this same little shape, my fingers stay on the same 2 strings, but then they slide down. And this time my ring finger is on the 6th fret, 3rd string, and my pointer finger, index finger, is on the 4th fret, 2nd string. And I let those 2 ring out as well. Now what we did was we just stepped down to the major pentatonic scale for B. Now what we're doing is we're playing, since there's just the 2 chords structurally in the song, we're still playing over the B part. So we started with kind of the B minor pentatonic, kind of bluesy, and then we walked down to the B major pentatonic. So remember the major pentatonic scale, that's the minor. The major is just 1, 2, 3. Every time, whatever your minor pentatonic pattern is, just go 3 frets this way and you'll be in the major pentatonic version of that. So it'll give it a more happy sound, more major sound. Okay. Now after that, we're going to play the 4th fret 3rd string. And then I come down to the 4th fret 4th string and do this walk up that goes like this. Now that's more of a chromatic scale, you know, chromatic meaning every note, like that. But it's starting here on the 4th fret 4th string, then I'm going to the 5th fret, 6th fret, and 7th fret. And I'm just really trying to walk up to here. And that's just another trick you can do. If you know that you're trying to go between point A and point B, you can always fill in the gaps. And that works most of the time. It'll work. As long as you get to where you're going to get in a timely manner, you don't hang out there too long. You can always kind of just fill in the gaps with notes. And you hear that a lot in jazz. Okay. Now from here, this is a really cool little transition to get to the E chord. So let that ring out, that 4th fret, 7th fret 4th string, and then I take my pointer finger here and I bar the first 3 strings on the 4th fret so that I can play strings 3 and 2. And when you let all 3 of these ring out, it sounds really cool. So now watch this. My pinky very easily comes up here to play the 5th or the 7th fret 2nd string. And then to conclude that, I play an E chord right here. It's a little E triad. And I know some of you are probably like, what? There's no E chord there? It's and I cover this in other lessons where I talk about playing chords in different voicings on the neck. But that's what this is. If you just bar the first 4 strings on the 4th fret. Now we're only going to play strings 4, 3, and 2. And then you put your middle finger down on the 5th fret 2nd string and your ring finger down on the 6th fret 4th string. That's a great little E triad to get to. And you can even hit the 1 string as well. You have that to work with. So it's another place to play an E chord. Another way to think of that is the Keith Richards thing. He kind of hammers onto those chords a lot. And I realize he's in a different tuning and so forth. Okay, we've covered a lot here. Let's go through this lead part. Let me do it slowly. Now the lead keeps going because at that point, as soon as I hit the E chord, I just define the E part of the song. So now this will be interesting, and we'll cover this in part 2. Now we're going to switch scales, and we're not going to be playing the B scale. We're going to be playing E. So now it's going to be E minor pentatonic, E major pentatonic, all the E stuff, E flavored. And that's what gives us that kind of ragtime thing. You're switching back and forth between you're switching scales as the chords change. And that's probably a departure for a lot of you. And it is for me too, to some extent. A lot of what I've always done is just, if you're playing if the song's in the key of E, just stay in the key of E. Just play the E. In this song, you could just play the E major pentatonic scale for the whole thing if you wanted. But if you really want it to sound a little more sophisticated, switching scales as the chords change is the key to that. Let me back up now, and I'll cover everything. I'll play through it all slowly up to that point. So here we go. and that's where we're going to end it. One other little thing I just noticed. When I slid, I did a slide here instead of picking those notes. That just made it easier from the, what is that, the 6th fret 4th string, sliding it up to the 7th fret. It's just one less thing to have to pick. And there's your E part. And then we'll get into the rest of that in the second video. So I hope you've learned something. You know, I hope your takeaways are, how can I take 2 chords on my own and play my own leads? And that's why I spent a lot of time talking about where we are and why the notes work. So you're not just memorizing notes with no reference to anything. That's not really learning to play anything. So I hope that makes sense. All right, we'll see you in part 2.